Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting. Today, an AI CEO tells the Pentagon they'll work it out over ICBM defense. An airline evacuation reveals our terrifying attachment to carry-on bags, and a guy in Michigan treats traffic laws like a sociological experiment.
Quite the mix today.
Yeah, welcome to your custom-tailored deep dive. Our mission today is simple. We are taking the absolute fire hose of today's X timeline, filtering out the noise, and analyzing the cultural and market shifts that actually matter to you.
And if we look at the raw data coming across the wire today, a massive, almost unsettling theme emerges.
Yeah.
We are seeing an incredible structural friction between the strict logical rules our systems rely on and how flawed humans actually behave when the pressure is dialed up.
Totally. Let's start with the absolute highest stakes imaginable, because the lead story today is a high-speed collision between Silicon Valley and the United States military.
The Anthropic situation.
Right. There is a massively viral post from @Chamath Pelihapitiya, going after Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei. Here's the context. A January 2026 Washington Post report revealed the Pentagon had been running war game scenarios using Anthropic's Claude AI.
Specifically for ICBM defense, intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Exactly. We are talking about literal life and death, minutes to react national security windows. And when Amodei was pressed about the safety guardrails surrounding this classified AI deployment, his response was essentially,
You could call us and we'd work it out.
yes, you could call us and we'd work it out, which is wild.
I mean, it is an astonishing thing to say out loud when you're dealing with nuclear defense protocols.
That's exactly Chamath's point. He argues that no elected official, no military commander can responsibly work with a tech company on critical infrastructure if their emergency protocol is literally a customer service call.
Right.
But frankly, Anthropic's entire brand is built on safety. They'd actively want to avoid building Skynet. Can you blame them for wanting rigid ethical guardrails?
Look, you can't blame them ethically, but you have to look at the second-order effects of that stance in reality.
Okay.
What you have here is an ideology clash. Anthropic has firmly refused to drop its safeguards against mass surveillance and autonomous weapons in Department of Defense contracts. So you have a tech firm trying to maintain pure theoretical ethics and a military apparatus that operates in split-second existential timeframes.
Like minutes.
Exactly. If an inbound missile is detected over the Pacific, the Pentagon cannot sit on hold waiting for an AI company's ethics board to grant an override.
I just keep picturing a four-star general pressing 0 to speak to a representative while sirens are blaring in the background.
It sounds like a comedy sketch, but the market implications are severe. The broader risk here is that Anthropic could find themselves entirely excluded from future highly lucrative defense contracts, or, conversely, they could have their technology forcibly commandeered under the Defense Production Act.
Actually, let's pause on that, because you hear that term thrown around in the news. What does the Defense Production Act actually mean for a private company?
It is essentially the government's ultimate trump card. It allows the executive branch to legally force private industries to prioritize national defense contracts above all else.
So they just step in.
Right. It's the government saying, your corporate terms of service are lovely, but this is a national emergency and we are commandeering your servers. That is the massive vulnerability when a civilian tech ethos meets the grim reality of global defense.
That terrifying gap between how a system is designed to work on paper and how humans panic in reality isn't just a hypothetical problem for Pentagon war games. It actually played out in real life this week on a much more relatable scale.
Oh, the airplane video.
Yeah. There is shocking footage circulating from an account called @AcafaceUS. It's passenger video from the January 2026 American Airlines Flight 3D-23 emergency evacuation at Denver International Airport.
The one with the tire blowout.
Right, a tire blowout followed by a fire. People are sliding down the emergency inflatable chutes, and half of them are dragging their heavy carry-on roller bags with them.
It is a phenomenal micro-study in human irrationality. If you read the consensus and the replies, the internet is absolutely out for blood. People are demanding these passengers be put on a permanent federal no-fly list.
I panic when I leave my phone charger in a hotel room, but I am not risking a federal charge and a fiery explosion for a Samsonite suitcase. It is wild to watch people risk it all for luggage.
The anger online is entirely supported by the data, though. A 2023 Archith study looks specifically at baggage collection during aircraft evacuations. They proved that when passengers start to grab personal items from the overhead bins, it causes massive bottleneck obstructions in the aisles.
Because everyone behind them is just stuck waiting.
Exactly. It raises the overall exit time of the aircraft by 20 to 50%. That delay exponentially raises the risk of smoke inhalation, injury, or death for everyone trapped behind them.
Wait, if the aviation industry has actual data proving that humans are this irrational, why don't they design overhead bins that automatically lock during a fire? Why rely on the honor system during a panic?
That is the eternal engineering dilemma. The FAA has a very strict mandate. An entire commercial aircraft, regardless of size, must be able to evacuate in 90 seconds.
90 seconds. Okay.
To achieve that, the protocol simply dictates that you leave everything behind. But adding automatic locking bins introduces weight, mechanical complexity, and the risk of a latch failing when someone actually needs emergency equipment stowed up there.
Oh, right.
Systems are designed for rational actors. But in a fire, human instinct completely overrides systemic logic.
To be fair to the raw timeline today, there are defenders in that thread pointing at a different kind of logic. They argue that some passengers might be grabbing essential life-saving items like insulin or heart medications, but still, the protocol is absolute. Speaking of testing the absolute limits of a system, sometimes people don't wait for a fiery emergency to see if the rules apply to them. Sometimes they run the experiment themselves.
You're talking about the Michigan story.
Yes, from the viral thread by @hustlebitch_. On February 24th, 2026, during a city commission meeting in Grand Rapids, Michigan, a white resident stepped up to the public podium. He held up his expired vehicle registration tabs and stated, on the public record, that he had been driving illegally 5 days a week for an entire year across multiple jurisdictions, specifically to test police racism.
Wow.
And his conclusion, he claimed he was never stopped a single time.
Because this is a highly polarized story, we need to look strictly at the data and the surrounding context here. It is not our job to declare a verdict, but to understand why this specific moment caught fire online. The anecdote this resident presented at the podium actually aligns with broader, documented statistical findings. For instance, the Stanford Open Policing Project analyzed roughly 100 million traffic stops nationwide. They found that Black drivers face a 20% higher stop rate for what are called pretextual reasons compared to white drivers.
Just to make sure we are on the same page, a pretextual stop is basically when an officer uses a minor violation like a busted taillight or expired tabs as a legal justification to pull you over and investigate for a bigger crime, right?
Correct. It's using a minor infraction as a pretext for a broader search. And locally, a specific 2017 Grand Rapids report found that Black motorists were twice as likely to be pulled over in that very city.
But the replies to this thread are incredibly divided. Half the internet sees this guy's year-long experiment as a stark, undeniable illustration of unequal policing. But then you have a massive wave of skeptics calling the entire stunt deeply unscientific.
Because of the variables.
Exactly. They're pointing out that he didn't account for massive variables. What kind of vehicle was he driving? What specific neighborhoods was he commuting through? Did he drive strictly the speed limit?
Which are entirely valid critiques of his methodology. But to provide the full impartial context of why this post is exploding right now, you have to look at what happened in that city just days prior.
Right.
This testimony arrives amid intense, renewed scrutiny of the Grand Rapids Police Department following the February 18th fatal shooting of a Black cyclist, DeQuayne Johnson.
So the timing is what makes it radioactive.
Precisely. When you place this man's expired tabs experiment against the backdrop of an actual community fatality, you see how these viral stunts instantly transform. They cease to be just an unscientific anecdote. They become focal points for deeply complex systemic pain. It's a real-time debate over whether the justice system operates differently depending on who is behind the wheel.
You know, all of this friction, the military struggling with AI ethics, the airlines fighting human panic, the justice system facing crises of trust, it really makes you realize how incredibly messy the real world is.
It's chaotic.
Which might explain why the tech industry is spending billions of dollars trying to build perfect artificial ones. Let's shift the vibe and look at the bleeding edge of tech and innovation, because we are seeing a massive push for hyper-realism in digital spaces.
You are looking at the gaming sector now.
Exactly. There is a post from @SintPotato hyping up the upcoming March 19th release of a game called Crimson Desert. They shared a clip of the game's nighttime heavy rain graphics, and it is genuinely hard to tell if it's a video game or actual drone footage.
It's impressive.
We are talking about realistic water particles splashing off individual leaves, dynamic lighting, dense fog, all built on Pearl Abyss's proprietary black space engine.
It is visually stunning. Digital Foundry, which is essentially the gold standard for analyzing video game performance, put out an analysis praising the rain simulation. They compared it to the high watermark of The Last of Us Part 2, but noted this is being achieved in a massive open-world context, which requires exponentially more processing power.
But I know you, and I know you're looking at the history of these massive tech promises.
Yeah.
Does visual hype actually translate to a good experience?
If we look at the industry's track record, you have to apply a heavy dose of cynicism. Crimson Desert was originally announced way back in 2019. It has been delayed for years, largely because the studio was trying to chase and exceed the sheer scale of Red Dead Redemption 2.
That's a high bar.
The overarching question for the market is whether this hyper-realism will survive the inevitable downgrades required to run on standard consumer-level consoles. We see this cycle constantly. Breathtaking visual height is used in marketing to completely mask shallow, repetitive gameplay loops.
Which perfectly illustrates that perfect realism doesn't actually guarantee we'll care. If you look at the graveyard of tech innovation, chasing the ultimate physical simulation is usually a trap. Right alongside this Crimson Desert marvel, a post from @D3Soul went massively viral today.
What was it?
It's a blast from the past. A clip of Connect Adventure's River Rush minigame from 2010. Do you remember the Connect?
Vaguely, you had to physically jump around your living room to steer a virtual raft.
Yes. You had to push your coffee table out of the way, and you used your whole body as the controller. The nostalgia in the replies is completely overwhelming. People miss it.
It is a fascinating juxtaposition against today's hyper-realistic graphics. Let's look at the life cycle of the Kinect. Microsoft sold 24 million units. It was a massive initial commercial success, but they ultimately killed the hardware entirely in 2017.
Why kill something that sold 24 million units?
Because the novelty evaporated. First, it suffered from severe privacy fears. Consumers suddenly realized they didn't want a constantly active, internet-connected camera mapping their living rooms.
Oh yeah, the camera.
But more importantly, the gameplay depth never evolved beyond those shallow 15-minute party games. It is a vital lesson for modern tech, particularly if you look at the struggles with mainstream VR adoption right now.
It's the exact same cycle.
If you've ever tried out a VR headset, you know exactly how this story ends. When the shiny novelty of the new technology fades, if it doesn't solve a fundamental problem or offer deep, sustained engagement, it ends up gathering dust in a closet.
It really puts our current era of innovation in perspective. We have all this power, but we don't always know what to do with it. And there's an amazing post from the account at retro_anime today that highlights exactly how wrong our predictions about technology usually are.
The anime clip.
Yeah, they shared a 36-second clip from a 1989 anime called Goku, Midnight Eye. It features a rogue, cybernetic private eye hacking into the electrical system of a massive Tokyo skyscraper using a computer in his eyeball. But here's the kicker. The anime is set in the distant dystopian future of 2014.
The cultural irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. In the 1980s, our collective vision of the future was gritty, rebellious, and highly stylized. We imagined fighting evil mega-corporations in rain-slick neon alleys with cool, implantable tech.
What did we actually get?
We got endless terms of service agreements. If you connect this back to our first story today, our actual cyberpunk reality is just sanitized tech CEOs wearing plain gray t-shirts, casually debating ICBM defense protocols on social media while sitting in ergonomic office chairs.
That is so true.
The aesthetic of the future we actually got is profoundly, depressingly bureaucratic compared to the future we predicted.
We traded neon bionic eyes for two-factor authentication. But that bureaucratic, extremely online reality has fundamentally rewired how we engage with the world, and more importantly, how we react to human suffering.
It has.
Let's dive into our third segment on the mechanics of culture and misinformation. We have to start with a really tough story. The account @DramaAlert posted an update on the rapper and influencer Bod Bobby. She has been dealing with blood cancer after revealing elevated white blood cell counts late last year, and she just posted that she received bad news from her doctor.
When you analyze the engagement metrics and the replies on this post, you see a severe, almost terrifying empathy deficit. The post has millions of views, but instead of the audience offering basic human support for a young woman with cancer, a massive portion of the replies are baselessly blaming her diagnosis on cosmetic surgeries, specifically Brazilian butt lifts or BBLs in her tattoos.
Let's address that directly. Is there any actual medical science backing up what the internet is claiming?
Absolutely none. Let's state the medical reality clearly. There is zero peer-reviewed evidence linking fat grafting procedures, which is what a BBL is, to blood cancers. Medical studies have associated certain specific types of textured breast implants with a rare form of lymphoma, but that has nothing to do with fat transfer or her specific diagnosis.
It's so dark. It's treating a real human being's health crisis as just another piece of raw material to win an argument online. People will twist a tragedy to fit a narrative if it gets them likes.
It highlights how the architecture of these platforms prioritizes dunking on a controversial figure over acknowledging basic medical facts. Outrage is simply a much more viral emotion than empathy.
And it shows how quickly people abandon reality for a narrative that feels more exciting. Which actually happens with basic history, too.
Oh, the bronze doors.
Right. An account called @WakenMinds posted a video of the massive 23-foot-tall bronze doors at Rome's Archbasilica of St. John Lateran. The caption just ominously says, "These doors were not built for us." And the replies are absolutely flooded with historical conspiracy theories claiming the doors were built by biblical Nephilim giants.
This is a textbook example of architectural engagement farming. The forbidden history, or hidden past trend, is incredibly lucrative right now. To completely debunk this, these are 2,000-year-old Roman artifacts. They were originally from the Roman Senate building and were repurposed in the 12th century for the basilica.
So why are they 23 feet tall if there weren't giants walking around Rome?
For two very practical reasons. First, for ceremonial grandeur. Architecture was meant to inspire awe and diminish the individual standing before the church or the state. Second, practically, they had to accommodate massive horse-drawn carriages and ceremonial floats during processions.
Makes sense.
But the creator of this specific video uses a deliberate POV lens distortion. It artificially stretches the edges of the frame to exaggerate the scale of the doors, making them look even more impossibly huge compared to the people standing nearby.
So it's basically an optical illusion.
It is a calculated tactic to game the algorithm. It feeds the viewer's desire for esoteric mysteries because giants built this gets more shares than Roman bronze casting techniques.
It's amazing how a 2,000-year-old piece of engineering turns into a sci-fi conspiracy overnight. But sometimes, the internet's inability to understand the physical world isn't a malicious conspiracy. Sometimes it's just pure, hilarious geographical ignorance.
The vacuum video.
Yes, a Nigerian makeup artist going by the handle @Isaucy posted a video of a North American fitness influencer at Nora Rosie Jane's. In the video, the influencer is just vacuuming her living room, but she's using a hose that is plugged directly into a socket on her wall. The makeup artist posted it with genuine confusion, asking, "Someone explain to me what she's doing, please."
It is a phenomenal moment of global cultural friction. What we are looking at is a central vacuum system. For anyone who hasn't lived in a spacious North American suburban home, it seems like magic. The motor and the actual dirt collection canister are housed remotely, usually in a garage or a basement.
Right. The idea is to minimize indoor noise and stop the exhaust dust from recirculating back into your living room. You just plug a lightweight hose into an inlet on the drywall.
Exactly. But if you've never seen one, it literally looks like she is trying to suck dirt straight into the structural framing of her house. The post has over 3 million views, and the replies are just filled with people from around the world totally baffled by North American housing courts.
I love moments like this. It's so innocent.
And the second-order effect of the platform here is fascinating. X acts as this bizarre engine for global viral education. A completely mundane piece of regional architecture becomes an international talking point, although it is worth noting the dark side of the creator economy.
What happened?
The original influencer had to jump into the replies to fight for credit, which is the constant tax creators pay when their mundane moments go globally viral.
True. To wrap up today's deep dive, I want to look at 2 posts that perfectly capture the schizophrenic nature of our feeds right now. We demand to be simultaneously awestruck and completely outraged over nothing. First, we have a video from @MattWallace888 that brilliantly contrasts amateur recreational ice skaters completely eating it on a public rink with the superhuman gravity-defying routines of elite Olympic figure skaters. It's an incredible visual of human potential.
The biomechanics behind figure skating are genuinely staggering. According to the Journal of Sports Sciences, these elite athletes are training 20 to 30 hours weekly, starting from early childhood.
And the forces involved in those jumps are insane, right?
Yes. To execute a quad jump, a skater has to generate roughly 10 times the rotational torque of an amateur.
Wow.
Rotational torque is basically the twisting force that causes rotation. They aren't just jumping high, they are snapping their body into a spin so violently that it requires an unfathomable level of core strength. It's like comparing the engine output of a push lawnmower to a Formula One car. It is a visualization of absolute peak human dedication.
Peak human dedication. And yet, I have to immediately pair that majestic display with a post from an account called at Tenatena5252. It's a comedic clip from the Pokemon anime where a trainer is literally using a sleeping grass-type Pokemon, Chikorita, as a fluffy pillow. And the internet is staging this massive, mock-furious outrage decrying the enslavement of Pokemon. It has well over 1 million views.
If you synthesize these two final posts, it perfectly encapsulates the modern attention economy.
How so?
To survive online, you have to feed the algorithm's dual hunger. On one hand, there is a deep, inherent human appreciation for absolute physical excellence, the Olympian-defying gravity. On the other hand, there is a voracious, seemingly endless appetite for utter absurdity, pretending to be furiously angry over a cartoon character being used as a piece of bedding.
The internet demands to be amazed, and it demands to be deeply unserious, usually in the exact same scrolling session.
Which brings us to a prediction for tomorrow based on today's data.
Let's hear it.
Given the severe friction we saw today between rigid national security systems and the tech sector, expect to see more tech founders scrambling to quietly walk back their casual dismissals of government regulation. The Pentagon doesn't take "we'll work it out" for an answer when it comes to nuclear defense. And on the cultural front, expect the algorithm to keep rewarding those historical mysteries. By tomorrow afternoon, the internet will likely decide a weirdly shaped cloud or a mundane local building is absolute proof of a massive government cover-up.
I can already see the blurry lens-distorted photos trending right now. So here is a final thought for you to chew on as you go about your day. We saw people risk their actual lives to grab their carry-on luggage out of a burning airplane, and we saw a man risk his freedom for a whole year to test the bounds of police enforcement. When the pressure is really on and the stakes are real, do you trust the systems that were built to protect you? Or do you trust your own irrational instincts even when the data says you're dead wrong? Thank you for joining us for your personalized daily vibe casting deep dive. We'll catch you next time.